There was once a king, and this king had 3 daughters. Every one of them was fairer than the last one. And he loved his daughters dearly. And unlike many kings, he played a big part in their upbringing. He was there every day, telling them stories, teaching them things. And like every father, he wanted them to grow to be successful and clever, and like those times, marry well. And so one day he was sitting with them and he was stroking and caressing their hair lovingly and reading to them. And then he suggested they play a game. So a child loves to play games, and they played all sorts of games and they laughed, and finally they tired themselves out. And so he said to them, "Daughters, I'd like to ask you a question." And he said to the oldest daughter, "Oldest daughter, tell me how much you love me." "My father, I love you like I love gold and silver." "Ah, if you love me so much, we'll marry you. We'll marry you to the richest knyaz, which is a count. And there you'll be able to wear gold and wear silk every day. And you, my middle daughter, how much do you love me?" "Oh, father, I love you like honey and I love you like precious jewels." "Ah, if it is this much that you love me," said the Tsar, "we'll marry you into a rich tsarstvo, a kingdom, and there you'll be able to eat as much as you want and wear the most majestic things that you could find. And you, my youngest daughter, how much do you love me?" "Father, I love you as much as I love salt." "As much as salt? As much as salt?" said the Tsar. "Well, you don't love me at all. Well, get out of here. Get out of my sight. Get out of my kingdom. A shame all this effort we've put into raising you so far. From this day forward, you are no longer my daughter. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. Get out from my sight." At this point, the Tsaritsa, the queen, she heard what was going on. She was frightened, and she went to ask what was happening. And when she understood, she tried to fix things. She tried to untangle the mess that has happened like any mother would. But the Tsar had none of it. His word was said, and that was final. And so the girl had to leave her house. Years passed. The Tsar married off his oldest daughters like he wanted to. And he was in relation with the most successful of different Tsars. And for the youngest daughter, well, she was alive and well. She'd been walking a long time. Her feet blistered, her clothes filled with dust. And one day, as she was walking, she saw an old man. He was with a long beard and he was crippled, and he carrying a heavy load with his clothes tattered and torn. He was leading a donkey and he hardly walked. And this girl was good-natured, so she ran towards him and said, "Diado, grandfather, can I help you?" And the old man looked at her and smiled and asked where she came from. Who was her father? Who was her mother? And she told him she had no father. She had no mother. She was all alone in this world. Well, the old man was delighted. He invited her to spend her days in the little cottage in the little village that he lived in. He'd loved some company. And so the girl went to live in the old man's cottage, which was just at the edge of the forest. And this forest was between this kingdom and another kingdom, another tsarstvo. And in this forest, it was both kingdoms that hunted. And from the other kingdom, the person that hunted the most was the Tsar's son, the prince. One day, he went hunting like every other day. And then after he had finished, he went to sit by and speak with the old man in the cottage. He was a quiet man, a nice man, and liked to hear the gossip from the forest. And so he went to speak with the old man, and today he went, tomorrow he went. He saw the girl, he liked the girl, he fell in love with the girl and wanted to marry her. And so he went home and told his father, the Tsar from the next kingdom. The Tsar was furious. You will not marry a cripple's daughter, a beggar's daughter. It will be shame on me. No, you will not. And the Tsar had spoken. But the Tsar's son, he threatened he'd become a monk if he wasn't allowed to marry this girl. And the Tsar was angry. He thought, and finally he decided he had a plan. He was going to go and drive that girl out. And so one day he mounted his horse and galloped into the woods to go hunting. And at midday, he went into the old man's hut, and there at the door, he saw a young woman. She was beautiful, and she was fair and clean and well made, but her clothes were tattered and full of rags. At that moment, the Tsar realized that this was the girl that his son loved. He asked her, "Where is your father?" "My grandfather isn't here," she said. "He went to gather wood. He'll be back later. You're welcome to sit and wait for him." "And where's your father?" asked the Tsar. "Well, I don't have a father. Not since he chased me out of the kingdom." "What kingdom?" asked the Tsar, very surprised. And the girl told him the whole story. Now this Tsar was a clever man, a sensible man. And he realized how clever this girl was. He realized that she had loved her father the most. But her father, the Avatar, he was a stupid man, a greedy man for treasure, and he hadn't realized. Well, he was so happy that his son's bride would be so clever. And so he went home to tell his son to gather a party to go and collect her. And so the bride was brought home, and there was a wedding. Ah, such a wedding. They invited everybody from the kingdom, and of course, they didn't forget to invite the father's bride. When all the guests came, the tables were prepared, the food was cooked. Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful. The tables were laid with the most beautiful dishes, with the most beautiful bowls and cutlery, gold and silver and jewels beyond your imagination. The food was served, but he told the cooks to serve the food of the girl's father, the Avatar, without any salt. And so they began to eat. And the girl's father, the Avatar, he took a bite, and he frowned, and he went to take another bite from another dish, and he took a bite, and he frowned, and he took another bite, and well, it just wasn't right. And he was so hungry, he couldn't contain himself, and he said to the Tsar, "Neighbor, why are you keeping us hungry, neighbor?" And the Tsar, the girl's father-in-law, he was surprised. "Eat, neighbor, eat, eat. Look around you, there's dishes, there's food, the most beautiful food, and look, I've given you the most expensive bowls, the most expensive cutlery, gold and silver and jewels. Everything on this table is made to be eaten, neighbor, eat, eat." And the first Tsar, wow, he was beyond disbelief. "Why are you acting like a crazy person?" he said. "Look at this, gold and silver cutlery. Who can eat gold? Who can eat silver? Who can eat jewels? And look at this food. It's roasted hen with honey on top. Who eats birds with honey? Without salt, food isn't sweet. Give me salt, gay neighbor. Give me salt to put the world right. When the Tsar heard, he said, if salt will make everything right, and if you cannot live without salt, why did you chase your daughter away? Why did you chase your daughter away? And you kept your oldest two daughters, who said they loved you as much as they loved expensive things, things that you cannot do without. How do you know? Said the Tsar. I know. I know because of the bride. She told me. This bride is your youngest daughter, and she loved you the most, and you chased her out. And at this point, the Tsar realized that his youngest daughter had indeed loved him the most. For you cannot live in the world without salt. And now he knew that. There are plenty of people who live in poverty, who are fine, alive and well, without jewels, without gold and silver. There are people who haven't tasted a drop of honey in their lives, and yet they are fit and well, but you cannot live without salt. And so he realized his older two daughters hadn't really truly loved him, and he left his kingdom to his youngest daughter, for she could discern the important things in life.